Welcome back. To complete our discussion, talking about economic health, joining me again is Victor Griffin, president of Storehouse Financial, and Chris Dannenfeld. You're the president of J.C. Dannenfeldt Financial Management, because that's still you.
I need to get a shorter name.
You need to get a shorter name, but it's still you. JC is really still you, as Chris.
Yes.
Well, let's jump in. You've given us some fascinating concepts and things to think about. In this last segment, I want to focus on maybe where a lot of us really are. We're at the point where maybe we're thinking it is hopeless, and you kind of highlighted that before. It's never too late. But the person who really says, well, maybe I'll look at that in 5 years, or maybe next year when the economy gets better, or maybe what should we readjust in our mindsets?
Well, I think
Victor,
we should, first of all, you need to be a good example to your kids, and you
Okay.
need to take control of your life. Stop looking to Washington, stop looking to Wall Street. The cavalry isn't coming over the mountains.
Okay.
What you need to do is get a budget. Now, budgeting never works, but at least you've got a management snapshot of where you're at. I have clients that tell me, well, gee, it takes everything we make to pay the bills.
Right.
Then they do a budget, and they realize they got $1,000 a month free cash flow. Where's all that money going? Well, you get 20 bucks out of the ATM in the morning, get a cup of coffee at 7-Eleven, you get home, there's nothing left. Where did I spend it? So at least you know where you're at. Now, other people are right up there on the edge. So we need to work about reducing your expenses. Are you really getting the best deal on cable? Should you get rid of the premium channels? Now these are tough decisions, but in many cases, the way you're doing your mortgage is having a very dramatic impact on your future finances, on the taxes you pay today. If you're doing it right, it can be putting $1 million back in your hands over the next 30 years. You're doing it wrong, it could be costing you that $1 million. Maybe you're doing the right kind or the wrong kind of mortgage. Maybe you have debt equity in your house. Now, you have to be careful about borrowing equity from your home.
Okay.
Because too many people, they're not disciplined. You get the money, before you know it, you intended to invest it, and it's gone in a year. So all these things, look at everything, your auto, your homeowner's insurance. You're spending money on various insurances, various investments, and that money's either making you rich or it's making somebody else rich.
Okay.
So once you've determined your budget, and let's say you have money left over, why don't you determine what you're willing to save? And if that's $50 a month and that's all it is, great. The first paycheck you get, you save the 50 bucks and just blow everything else. At least you saved first, because if you don't, I know myself, for many years in my early career, I did not take my own good advice. Well, I'll save money one of these months I have money left over.
Right.
That month never
when
comes.
I get extra.
And then I see people, they're 65, they're ready to retire, they've got $30,000 in the bank and $1,300 worth of Social Security. Game over, you lost. So what are you willing to do to fix your situation? I had a couple I was talking with the other day. The wife is working. The husband can't take a job beneath his education, so he's staying home every day, playing around on the computer. And I said, man, so what? You can't find a job? Go deliver pizzas on the weekend. That's 200 bucks a week. That's 800 bucks a month. Now you guys are in the positive and your wife isn't stressed out. And she's, yeah. And he said, well, yeah, but. And I said, been there, done that. Had an ex-partner that stole a lot of money from me. I was willing to do anything to solve my problem.
Okay.
Little things can make such a huge difference. Well, I thought you're a financial advisor. Well, yeah, but what's the game? When you go to play a game, my intent is to win. I want to find a way to win. I'm not going to accept that I'm going to lose. Everybody has that opportunity if you take control of your own life and get some help.
And that's important to know. I do want to ask Victor on this one. If persons come into you and they're talking about the saving component that Chris just mentioned, what if they say, well, my company takes out so much money and that goes into savings. I don't need to save any more, do I? How do you help us begin to look at that part of our financial process and changing that? Do we need to?
I'm glad you asked that question. I usually talk to clients and say, well, do you want the blessed version or do you want your version? And I usually teach my clients that to live off the 80-20 rule. That means they're going to pay their 10% in tithes to their church that they belong to, if they belong to a church, and then they save 10%. Now, if they're contributing 6 to their 401k, then they need to save back 4 more on their personal side. So if they're saving 10%, which every American should be, then they will keep them from being in a tough situation financially. They'll never be broke another day in their life when you really think about it. Every paycheck they get, if they put 10% aside, they're going to ensure themselves some growth and development on their money.
Okay, now is this 10% of what our take-home pay is, or 10%
10%
before?
off the top, off the gross.
Off the gross.
And it makes it fun, paying tithes that way. You say, hey, I get to give God 10, and I get to take 10.
Okay.
And then I live and budget off the 80%. And you can't go wrong in that environment.
Okay, and anything else that's being taken out is just extra.
Exactly.
But that's our commitment.
Exactly.
Now let me ask you this, Chris, because you talked a lot about how we should be viewing things, and let me ask you about children, you know, those that are having children and are raising them. And maybe there's a young child, 17, 18, that wants to do a lawnmower business or something like that. What kinds of things can you help that parent with that child with, as well as talking with that child if they're wanting to start a little business, lemonade stand, whatever it is? What do you do?
I think that's probably the best thing you can ever teach your children. When I talk to older people, you know, they don't want to leave money to their kids. It's more important to leave values and concepts. And if you teach a child how to be in business for themselves, where they're in control, and teach them about budgeting and a business plan and other things, run that business like a business. Those are skills they'll learn, and hopefully by the time they graduate from college, they can set up their own business and never have to work for someone else. So the things that you need to do for yourself, you need to be teaching your children the same thing. They're never too young to learn. Play games with them. Okay. Teach them how to budget. Teach them how to save money. In fact, make them save money. No, you don't get your allowance or your little paycheck from your little job and go blow it all. Let me teach you good discipline that I didn't learn until recently, so you don't have to go through what we went through.
Okay, so even with the allowance concept, because some kids may get allowances, you would then say, like you're saying, 10%. 10% goes to savings. The same rules are going to apply to that child.
I have a little rule of thumb with my children, which I have 5. And so I teach them that if I give you an allowance, and this is a weekly allowance, if we come back to next week and you have no money, you get no allowance. That's how I entice them to save. You cannot get allowance unless you have $1 or something in your pocket. You had to save something, or else you won't get your allowance this week.
Okay, well, in just three seconds, that's excellent. 3 seconds, what's just one liner that you want us to take away from this? Chris?
Don't believe everything you're hearing in the financial world. The numbers are wrong. It's all a lie. You need to find out facts, figures, numbers, and history, and stop believing.
Okay, and for you, really quick?
Really quick, I would say come see us. Don't procrastinate. Take advantage of our consultation. We sit down with you at no charge and go over how we can help you out.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me.
Thank you so much for having us.
Well, that's our show. For Health Alert, I'm Pam Butler. I'd love to hear your questions, comments, or suggestions for future shows. Please write me at Health Alert USA, P.O. Box 50913, Tulsa, Oklahoma 74150, or if you're on the email trail, please email me at healthalertusa@gmail.com. Take care. Remember, don't procrastinate, and it's never too late. Get help. Take care. This program would not be possible without the support of OU Physicians in Tulsa.